An artist has to be tenacious. An artist has to be like a little chihuahua or pit bull that just grabs onto the ankle and will not let go and just nip. You have to be tenacious. You're going to have people that tell you that your work is not up to par, that you aren't good enough, that you um, lack this or that, or go to a workshop, and that's all good to hear. You have to hear that because if you don't hear that, you're not going to learn anything. You have to be willing to take criticism, and as much as it would sting, especially when you're younger, and it will sting, you have to learn to take it because in that criticism could be the key that you're looking for.
Welcome to the BoldBrush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold. Brush. My name is Laura Rangel-Bayer, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. For today's episode, we sat down with Brian Bateman, an historical artist who specializes in aviation and Western art, focusing on bringing past events to life through meticulously researched and detailed paintings. He discovered his passion for art in 5th grade and has since dedicated his career to capturing historical moments with precision and emotional depth. Throughout his journey, Brian emphasizes the importance of mastering fundamental artistic skills, being tenacious, and staying open to learning and criticism. He works between the aviation and Western art genres to maintain financial stability, highlighting the challenges artists face in marketing and selling their work. Brian stresses the significance of finding a subject matter one is truly passionate about and developing a unique artistic style that reflects personal experiences and emotions. He discusses the role of social media, galleries, and networking in promoting art, while also sharing insights into his creative process, which involves spontaneity and avoiding over-refinement. Finally, Brian tells us about his upcoming shows with Settlers West Gallery and the Coeur d'Alene Miniature Show, and his hopes to have a workshop in the near future. Welcome, Brian, to the BoldBrush Show. How are you today?
Thank you, Laura. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have you because we were discussing this, but you are a painter of historic scenes, which I think is, yes, it's so unique. It's so beautiful. And especially, your paintings of airplanes and machines. Of course, I love your Western paintings as well. But, personally, since I do come from a family of pilots and a family who loves, old images of old airplanes, like it is beautiful to see someone who represents them and has work, hanging in an aviation museum as well, which is really cool. But before we dive into all of those delicious, beautiful paintings of yours, do you mind telling us a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Brian Bateman, and I am a historical artist, is what I like to call myself. I love to bring the past to the present. And I think for me, my job, if you want to tell that, is that I bring those images to life from what has happened in the past. And so I am a very detailed historical artist. I enjoy the digging into and simplifying the process of what ends up at the back end. But you have to be historically correct to make sure that you capture the viewer's attention. And there are those out there who are very into history, and I call them rivet counters. And they'll know, oh, you let this off, or you let that off, or you didn't do that. So you got to be very cognizant when you do that because they're out there. So that's very interesting. That's what I do in a nutshell. I enjoy what I do, um, and I'm pleased to be here and talk about
Yeah. And again, like I said, I'm very excited because, from what you just mentioned, it does seem like kind of like what you do is just so deeply researched, right? Because you have to, like you said, you're gonna have people who maybe lived through those moments, who observed it, who can tell you like, hey, you're missing this, or you have people who are, hobbyists or actual historians who might, tell you like, oh, well, it's great, but it might be missing this other thing, right?
that.
Which, oh, it's so amazing though, because the intellectual aspect of it is also really fun. You know, the research, buying books or looking at documentaries or all of that. I think it adds another layer of complexity to the creation of those paintings.
It does. And what is very nice for me is that I was able to meet a lot of these pilots who flew a lot of these missions that I'm depicting. And so I'm talking to history and I'm showing this, that, and the other, and no, it wasn't that way, or we were this way, or we were that way. I had one pilot who knew the cloud cover from 70 years ago. So a lot of them don't recognize or remember what the paint schemes were, but they remember the mission itself or the shoot down or whatever. So I've been very lucky to have been able to talk to them, to be friends with them, and a lot of them are missed because they have long since passed. So I was in that window for 20 years where I got to be with these men and women. It was very, very uh, enlightening for me. It was great.
Yeah, because as you know, since you are depicting images of history, it's always best to go directly to the source, right? The people who lived in it and who
Yes.
experienced it. And I absolutely love the cloud cover thing because like even like my dad's a pilot and he'll sometimes also talk about like, oh yeah, you know, this is the way that the sun was hitting, or like sometimes, you know, he'll like remember very specific parts of like his flights even if it's been many many years,
Yeah.
because it is something that pilots look out for, and for them to even be able to inform you of the actual surroundings, that is so useful and informative for the work, because every day is different. The clouds are always different. And for specific historic moments, it's like, well, it's best to be as accurate to the moment as possible. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's true. And but on the other hand, like I mentioned earlier, there's some things they can't remember. It's been 70 or 80 years.
Hmm.
So that's where the artistic license comes in.
Yeah.
And you have to be as correct as you can with the research and learning what you have to depict into the painting. So that's always fun too. It's a lot of work. It's not just putting it down on canvas. You've got a lot of research before you put it down on canvas. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Definitely.
interesting to do.
Yeah, yeah, and that also brings to mind, because a lot of the airplanes that you paint are up in the air. They're already, you know, in, or like the ones that I saw, they're up in the air, they're doing their thing. And I think the complex part of that is also getting the perspective correct. You know, like the whole image has to make sense as if the viewer is up there observing the whole scene.
Yes, ma'am. And there's something called descriptive geometry that we use
Mm.
that we have to figure out the picture plane and where the aircraft is off the ground and the distance to the viewer to, kind of like a perspective. And you have to get that correct too. So that is very interesting. And that is pretty darn close to what it would look like from that set angle distance, and it's pretty interesting to do.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite part is descriptive geometry because I'm not a math guy, but it has to be correct. So
Yeah. Yeah. How does someone even learn descriptive geometry? Is there like a book?
well, funny you should mention that. I knew nothing of that until I joined the American Society of Aviation Artists, and Keith Ferris, who is one of the mentors that we'll talk about later. Keith is a math guy, and he and the members there on the board will teach you how to do that. So there it's interesting. Once you get it, you understand it. But boy, until then, I'm Polish, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, and it took me a while, but after a while, you finally figure it out. So.
Do you find that you can use it for other situations when you're painting, or is it mostly just for like the aircraft
No,
or any
you
machinery?
could. You absolutely could. You absolutely could use it for other situations. But I
Awesome.
tend to go back to normal perspective in the
Mm,
other paintings on the ground. But
mm.
I found that's more accurate for me. Doesn't mean it's, but for others, they could sure probably use it.
Yeah.
Um, but for the aerial, it's best for descriptive geometry.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I'm also just imagining, if someone out there who wants to paint a dragon or something, it might be a little bit useful.
Yeah, well, if you've got an image from you got the front, the side, and the top, you can do it. But you have to
Amazing.
have all three images of that, so because
Mhm.
you're projecting that onto your canvas.
Right. That is so cool. The more you know. And actually, I do. I want to go a little bit further in the past of your life because I know that you studied illustration, and I'm really curious also to know when did you begin to follow the path of the artist?
Wow, follow the path of the artist. Well, geez, I would imagine that I followed the path of the artist when I was about 8 years old, maybe. I
Mm.
really started to get into the aviation when I was in fifth grade. I had a best friend, and he would come in and he would draw the model box covers. And I thought, wow, that's very cool. And so I started doing. I've never looked back. I have never looked back. So I would say fifth grade. I really
Mm.
caught the bug at fifth grade. Then I was into the Civil War for a while, and then I started getting into to different historical events: World War One, World War Two, Korea, and so from there it just became uh, a part of me. It is who I am. Uh, I love history, and my genre is history. I do paint and draw other things to break the monotony of that, but I find that I keep gravitating back towards that because that's what I love to do. And you have to love, you have to have a passion. I'm going to use that word a lot. You have to have a passion for your subject. If you don't have a passion for your subject, you may get lost with all the things that you're going to do. You have to pick a direction and go with it because you
Yes.
want collectors and you want others out there to know you for a certain thing. And if you do a certain thing, they're going to recognize you and they're going to stick with you and they may buy your work. And that's the general goal of what we do in the end is for them to purchase our work so we can live another day and paint another painting. So,
Yeah, yeah, and making sure that the thing that you are doing is something you love, like you said, it isn't like let me pick a thing out of a bag. It's more like this is a thing that I love, and I really want to nurture it. And how can I nurture it more and give it more of that love so that others recognize that? Because I think oftentimes some people might get caught up in the searching for it before, or sorry, vice versa, or like they instead of searching for it they jump into just picking a random thing and being like, oh well, this is going to be my thing now, without realizing that that takes away a lot of the those like ethereal sort of qualities that paintings can have sometimes, of like when you know that the artist really loves what they're painting or how they're painting it, like it shows, it naturally shows.
yeah. And there's a danger of picking a subject that well, I'm just going to paint this. And then you get known for it, become known for it.
Yes.
And then you can kind of get trapped. So I guess my point is with everything out there, pick your genre, pick the subject that you love and have a passion for, because you could get pigeonholed doing something you don't want to really do if you do become successful. So it's very important to have that passion, to find that genre, to find that niche that you love to do. I think that's a lot of the game right there. You have to have the passion.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, if you're gonna do something you don't like, then you might as well get an office job.
Yeah, and I've had those, you
Oh
know.
goodness.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think many of us have had to do it as well, to
there's nothing wrong with it. There's
yeah.
you have to do it. You have to.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you have to have that income coming in so that your work can you can focus on your paintings without any worry. Unless you're lucky enough to be able to dive into it. But yeah,
Most of us
and
aren't. Most of
ew.
us aren't lucky enough to just dive into it and make it.
Yep.
There's a few
Yeah.
out there that can and do and have.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the most of us, oh, you got to pay your dues.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's fine too. I think it
yeah,
also makes it fulfilling.
yeah, and it's all part of who we are, of who we become. It's all part
Yes.
of our journey, and that's what makes us artists. And
Yeah.
so we can all come together and share what we have been through, and it's also similar. No matter what genre you pick, there's always the struggle. There's always the frustration. It we all share that. It doesn't matter who we are or what we do. We all share that. And so that's what I like to get that across because we've all been there. I've been there. People behind me are going to go through it. So it's all part of what we are and part of our journey.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a great point because that's one of the reasons we have this podcast, of course. And then also, I really love, reminding myself sometimes that the people that I admire who are painters or were painters in the past, because, they've passed away, they were in my shoes at one point, struggling with the same exact things. I mean, Da Vinci he wasn't born knowing how to paint
Mm-mm.
perfectly. He had to start from zero like everyone else. Sure, he may have had a talent for it and it was easier for him in some ways. But at the same time, he still had to go through these little rites of passage, if we can call them that, that all artists go through in their
Yep.
career. Yeah.
Run, go. No matter who your favorite master, uh, they all went through similar journeys, and most of them didn't get popular until they passed away centuries later. So you don't want that to happen to you, but it could. But
Mm,
you have to block all that out and
yeah.
just do you and do your best work.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, people like Van Gogh weren't around in such a wonderful time of opportunity, which is the age of information that we're in right now, right? We have the
Yep.
internet. It's almost impossible to not get seen by just one other person who'll love your work, uh, thanks to the internet, right? So I think taking advantage of that and in our time is so important as well. But of course, we'll discuss social media and the internet a little bit later. Right now, actually speaking of, past painters and maybe even contemporary painters of yours, friends of yours, who who would you say have been some of your most influential painters who have inspired you in your life?
From the past or present.
Both?
Okay, let's start with the past.
Yes.
Uh, Renoir,
Mm,
uh, Degas,
mm,
um, some of my favorite masters. My contemporaries in the aviation art world, my contemporaries would be Keith Ferris and Bill Phillips. Um, some of these names that for those who are in aviation know these artists, but those who don't, look them up. They're impressive. Um, for the Western artists, I'm really into Bill Anton and uh, geez, Z.S. Liang. He's a Chinese painter, and I really, really dig the Chinese painters. The Chinese painters know how to paint, and the Russian painters. The Russian painters are they are fantastic. They I don't know how they get to where they end up on a canvas, but boy, they just repetitive practice, 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 browbeating, whatever it takes, they've got it. And so other contemporaries, Matt Smith, who's a landscape painter, was absolutely fantastic. Uh, Howard Turpney, I don't know if you've heard that name, but he's absolutely fantastic. He's still with us. He's like 93 or 4. Look at his body of work for the Native American and Western art. Just fantastic work. And he did like movie posters like Gone with the Wind and other types of posters like that. So uh, illustrators, gosh, I loved Mark English, Bernie Fuchs, uh, um, these guys, Bart Forbes, these guys back in the day of illustration were the bee's knees, I guess you would call them, because they were busy and everything was illustrated before stock photography came in. I'm now old enough to know and see the progression of over time of what has happened, where illustration used to be the medium of choice to communicate, and now it's stock photography or stock photos or stock illustration, which is fine. But again, I was lucky enough to be a part of and learn from these great illustrators, and that still carries over into my work, especially lately in the direction that I'm going. Um, I have realized that I have to paint my way. And for a long time, you try to figure out your style and you try to figure out who you are. Um, and you look at your contemporaries and, well, I can't paint like that or I can't paint like that. Block that out of your head. Don't paint like that. You have to paint the way you paint. You can learn from them. You can observe. You can watch. You can watch videos. But in the end, you have to do your thing. And if you don't do your thing, you could get lost. And you don't want to get lost. You want to stay focused.
Yeah, it's very important to not get, because again, like how I said earlier, we're in the age of information. Wonderful. Double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't want to get bogged down by too much information. There's
Yeah.
so much about, you have to kind of funnel it. You have to limit it. Because it's so easy to get enamored and inspired by other artists and their work, but maybe it's not in your genre. Maybe it's not anywhere near the type of work you even make. Maybe their palette is entirely different, right? And it's easy to get to trick yourself into thinking, oh, maybe this is what I should do. It's like, no, calm down, sit down, give it a big think,
Yeah.
and funnel. Just limit, because like you said, it might drown out your own voice, and then suddenly, instead of you being known for you, where people see your work and say, oh, that's a Brian Bateman, right? They might say, like, it kind of looks like a student of so and so instead,
Yeah.
right? Or it
Yeah.
looks like so and so,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You
that's
have to
kind of
be
sad.
careful. You can, as you come up through the ranks, you emulate other artists that you admire,
Hmm.
and you want to paint like them for a while to learn. It's okay to do that. It's okay to take a Renoir and paint like that for a while, or take an Anton, a Western art, or a Matt Smith, and paint like that for a while, because you're learning different things about how they go about it. But in the end, you have to do your thing. You have to, like you said, take all that information and funnel it and do what's best for you. You can take all the workshops you want in the world. You can watch all the videos you want to. In the end, you have to funnel it out and do what's best for you. What works for you? There's different ways of attacking a canvas. There's different ways of painting. As long as the end result is professional and looks the way you want it to look, and you're proud of it, and you learn from it, that's all you need to do. But that's easier said than done, because I will still have noise in my head that I have to get that out of there and do what I should be doing. And my style now has become much more loose. It's much more splatter. It's much more free. I got a painting that I did called Resolution that is very, very loosely based. It's splatter and kind of building up from thin to thick, like we all should do. But I do a lot of thinner paint now because I'm getting this very cool effect. Um, I'm always experimenting. You don't want to get stagnant. You want to keep pushing and learning and growing and experimenting. Use a rag, wipe it off, put some thinner on there and see what it does. Put a medium or something on there to see what happens. And just enjoy the process. Enjoy what you're doing. Now, in the end, we're supposed to make a living at it, and hopefully we do. It's cyclical. Bless my wife. She she puts up with a lot, like any other artist, significant other, has to have that certain mindset to put up with that because that's not easy to put up with sometimes. You know, get the highs and lows. You get a big paycheck, and then you don't get something for a month or two or three, and then, you've got to budget yourself. One of the smartest things that one of my contemporaries told me, Bill Anton, when I visited his studio, is after I got over the shock of being invited into his studio and looking at his work, which was absolutely just phenomenal. And he was very gracious, he was very kind. And he sat me down, and my wife was there. He sat us both down and he told us, never live beyond your means. And I'm looking at his work, and he's, 120,000 a painting or what. He just, doing great. Oh, yeah, Bill's doing well. But Bill has worked his butt off a long time to get to where he is. And, but that always stuck with me. Never live beyond your means because you don't know what's going to happen in the artwork. You could be popular as all get out for a year or two or three, and then you can't find work or nobody will buy your work. And so that resonated with me that no matter who you are, how big you get, and there's some of them that are out there very, very prosperous and very, very big in the art world. You have to be careful because it could all go away. And I'm not trying to be negative, but you have to be kind of realistic. And that's why I believe in experimentation and kind of reinventing yourself and kind of keeping things fresh and kind of keeping things driven within your mind. Attack it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so true because this is one of those careers that, like you mentioned, it's important to have that support. Having, if you have a partner with you, that they're supportive, that they understand that this is something that has highs and lows, like you said, has like my mom calls fat cow times and lean cow times, where
Mhm,
you'll have
mhm.
plenty for some times and then you won't have much for other times, and that's so
Right.
key. But yeah, living below your means, very, very, very important. Because it is easy to get excited, like, oh wow, now I'm sending a bunch of paintings.
Yep.
Hmm. Pause. Calm
Mm,
down.
yep. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
because again, I have heard other artists also mention like they might have a really exciting show happening, but then it gets overshadowed by some historic thing, whether it's suddenly, there are fires in California and oh no, people can't buy paintings right now because they're tied
Yep.
up in
Yep.
my house might burn down,
Yep.
or I don't know, there's a flood somewhere nearby and then suddenly people can't make it to your show, right? There are factors outside that we cannot control, right?
Extenuating
It's
circumstances that you cannot write. You cannot count on the sale of that painting.
yep,
You can't. You hope, but you can't count on it.
exactly,
I've
exactly.
had
And
paintings that I've sent out where I thought, well, this should sell. I like this one. I'm confident about this one, but it doesn't sell. And then I've got one that's like, well, I like it. It's up to my standards. But it, I don't know. I don't know what, and it sells.
yeah,
You don't know what the collector's looking for. You don't know if you have touched something in the buyer or your style has touched something in the buyer that makes it an impulse buy, because a lot of it's an impulse buy. Art is a commodity. And so once you put that out there and you're with many, many talented artists, and I find myself flattered every single time that somebody buys my painting because it's with these other beautiful, wonderful pieces of art that I'm lucky enough to be included with, and it'll sell. It's fantastic. It's great. So there's a lot of gratuity to the collector and to the gallery and or even being able to be with these other artists who I admire. Um, I think a lot of what I see out there in the especially the Western art world, because I had to cross over into that to make ends meet more, because the aviation art, the pilots have died off, the wall space has gone away, and that's another subject that we probably should talk about is wall space, because we can talk about that a little bit later. But it's wonderful to be able to get into a prestigious gallery. It really is. I fought for 7 years to get into one. 7 years. Every once in a while, I would send a piece. How's this? Not quite yet, Brian. Okay. The next year, some new work. I don't think so. Okay. There for a couple years, I just said, well, yeah, I'm just not gonna. I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna try and get better. I don't know what they're looking for, but I'll keep experimenting, keep doing things. Finally, I sent a couple of pieces out. He looked at it and he goes, "We'll take that. That's nice. Merry Christmas." I said, "Okay, perfect." So I think another thing that we need to talk about is tenacity. You and I mentioned tenacity when we were talking earlier. An artist has to be tenacious. An artist has to be like a little chihuahua or pit bull that just grabs onto the ankle and will not let go and just nip. Do you like this? Do you like this? You remember the cartoon like Butch and Spike with the gallery is like Butch, and then Spike's the little, or Spike. Which one is it? I think Spike's that. Whatever it is, the the little dog just gets shut up, and then he'd smack him. It's kind of what the galleries kind of do at times in a nice way. This is just a different take on it from my deranged sense of humor, but you have to be tenacious. You're going to have people that tell you that your work is not up to par, that you aren't good enough, that you um, lack this or that, or go to a workshop, and that's all good to hear. You have to hear that, because if you don't hear that, you're not going to learn anything. You have to be willing to take criticism, and as much as it would sting, especially when you're younger, and it will sting, you have to learn to take it, because in that criticism could be the key that you're looking for.
Hmm.
So tenacity, taking criticism, uh, that's what I live by.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what you just said about taking criticism, I think, that really reminds me of how oftentimes we become too attached to our own suffering. And this sounds really crazy. We become very attached to our own suffering. And then when
Oh
someone
yeah,
gives us the criticism we need to hear that tells us, like you said, that little
yeah,
nugget that really kicks us in the shin and says, wake up, and it hurts us, it is because we are maybe attached to that mistake or that suffering that you're giving to ourselves, which is why it's so important to really just always be in, like you said, be in that state of I can hear this and not get hurt by it because I'm always learning, right? Like you mentioned this to me before, that you are just a forever learner, and I think that's the right mentality to have, because you can only ever learn if you're open to it, right? If you're closed off and you
right.
think I already know everything, how could you ever improve, you know?
Well, there was a point in my life when I was younger where I was right there. I knew everything. I knew I needed to improve, but somebody would tell me, "Well, this painting needs to. You need to rework this and read it." No, I'm done. I'm done with it. And then I'll look back at it after 10 or 20 years, and it's like, oh God, I need to redo this. You know, I wouldn't make any changes on it. what helped me was to realize that I do need to make a change on a painting if it's done. It's never done. It's done when you say it's done. It's done when you have reached the level that you can't go into the bar. And sometimes it's done when you have to send it to a gallery. You've got a deadline. I I could keep painting on something for years, but you can't because you have to go to it. It has to go to the gallery, or it has to go to the sale of the collector, and you got to let it go. But the ones that haven't sold, oh, I'll still pick up and I'll still fix that, or adjust the tone on that, or I'll just redo it. I've redone one 3 times. You have to get to that point professionally where it's okay to redo something, and don't be set that you have to stick with what you just did, because you can learn a couple of weeks or months or years from now, and if it still hasn't sold, rework it, and it could sell. And that's happened to me a couple of times. I've reworked it and it sold. So you've got to stay flexible. You've you cannot be rigid.
That is so important. Yes, because I mean, we have to keep in mind that every painting, like you said, it's never finished. It's just a process, and and
Mhm.
and, and something that's just, you know, ju just as we are incomplete as people in life because we haven't experienced everything, and we never will, really. Like the job is never over.
Nope.
The painting is a reflection of that. It is a moment in time of the person you were, and you're reflecting that on the canvas. And then as time goes on, you maybe experience more. And then if you want to revisit that painting, you have more experience that you can pour into it that could improve it, right? But like you said, it's never finished because we're never finished.
No.
It's a reflection of us.
And artists are very emotional.
Yeah.
And I think the best part of what we do is if we can capture that emotion and put it into our work, the viewer will see that.
Yeah.
They'll recognize that. I've had a lot of comments where they would write after the sale and said it's a very emotional piece. It's a very emotive piece. It's a very something captures it that they buy, which is fantastic. That's the goal of every artist. But you've got to put something of yourself in that work. You can't at this stage in my life. You have to put in what you're thinking and feeling at the time. Earlier in my career, you would learn from copying, and you would learn from being rigid, and I want to do a degas, or I want to do a, and I've done all of that, and I've learned from every single one of those. But you can't crib somebody's work. It's not, you can't do, but you can learn from doing it. Again, I'm not recommending doing that, but I recommend that you can take somebody's art and emulate it to learn what they did, break it down, and then go back and do your thing. So it's all very, very, very important uh, to learn and to get some years under your belt and share at least what I've learned in my almost 64 years. Um, and I've had a lot of great teachers. I've had a ton of great teachers. I don't think that there's an artist out there that has not had a successful teacher or two. I had a teacher in high school, which I'll never forget, Mr. Bishop, and I had a teacher in uh, college, Mr. McGuire. Those people resonate with you the rest of your life, and I can't describe how or why, but they become a part of you. And as you get older, you hear their voices more, or what they said, or how they reacted, and it does get in the back of your subliminal mind that they're still there. They're still talking to you. I think that that is the most important thing that a young artist could do now, is to find that teacher that not only teaches them, but drives them and forces them to do things over and make themselves better. Learn color, learn tone, learn it, perspective, learn drawing, learn the basics. Because without that, yeah, there's some artists out there that can do that and get away with it and sell work and make a good living. But I'm not one of those. And most of us aren't. We have to learn the basics and then break out and do your own thing.
Absolutely. If you've been enjoying the podcast and also want to be able to ask our guests live questions, then you might want to join our monthly BoldBrush Live webinars, where our guest artists discuss marketing tips, share inspiring stories, and answer your burning questions in real time. Whether you're a seasoned painter or just starting your creative journey, this is your chance to connect, learn, and spark new ideas. And whether you're stuck on a canvas or building your creative business, this is where breakthroughs happen. Don't miss out. Ignite your passion and transform your art practice by joining us. Our next BoldBrush Live webinar is coming up on April 24th with our special guest, Mark Legue. The sign-up link is in the show notes. At BoldBrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world, because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. BoldBrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BoldBrush show.com. The BoldBrush Show is sponsored by FASO. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal, considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e-commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day-by-day, step-by-step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's FASO.com/podcast. Absolutely. And everything you just mentioned, it reminds me so much of music, because
Yeah.
musicians have to, well, they don't have to, but they learn from the basics. They learn the scales, right? No matter what instrument it is, whether it's your voice, piano,
Exactly.
violin, you learn by imitating, right? So you might play some really complicated Mozart pieces or some very basic, other piano pieces, or basically you learn by copy. And then when you want to, get into composition, that's when you need to break down the things that you've already learned, you use them, and you remix it into your own thing. So it's funny how sometimes with painting, people seem to forget the importance of the basics in that sense. Like, I'm pretty sure no matter what, every single pianist out there still plays their scales every so often.
You
It's
have
that
to.
important.
You have.
Yeah.
I will go back and review perspective.
Mhm.
I will go back and review my basic drawing skills. Um, Teaching helps
Mhm.
me to go back to those basic drawing skills.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, I'd recommend teaching too, because for those of you who have taught, um, that really, really helps you get back to core basics, because you're trying to teach that again to your students. And in teaching that to your students, you're reteaching that to yourself. And then you're also learning to communicate, which sometimes my wife says I have a problem doing. So if you learn to communicate better and get it across to the student, and you have that aha moment, or they have that aha moment, it makes you feel good. You've got across to them, and that's very cool. But back to the core that helps with the core, at least for me, to revisit that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very easy to over time become too gratuitous with the knowledge you already have, right? You think, oh yeah, I already know that. Do you? Do you? I mean, it's
You
a little
never
bit
know it
like,
enough. You never,
yeah,
never know it enough.
there's always something. There's
And
always something.
I like your analogy of the musician because I use that a lot.
Mm,
We're the same, really,
we are.
and we're in the arts and entertainment business. There's a parallel between the music industry and artists, I think. And you mentioned
Yeah.
that very, very, very clearly, very nicely. And I do use that analogy once in a while. I was like, well, we're just like musicians. And are we? But yeah, we are, I think, because of the basics, because of the things that you mentioned. Um, so I mean, it's a small world. We're
It
all
is.
interconnected.
Yes. We all have the same basic ability of creation. We create. That is
Hmm.
like that is, in my opinion, is one of the unique things about humans is our main skill in general across the board is creation. So it would make sense that in every, different way that we create, there's still a very similar process.
Yeah.
Basics, revisit basics, go into the complex stuff, but it still needs that foundation, right? It's so important, as you've mentioned, and like you
Yeah,
said,
I
to
cannot
forgive.
strive for the importance of the foundation, knowing to draw, learning to draw, staying with drawing, even though you know how to draw later in life. Keep drawing. When I step away from drawing for a little bit and then try to draw it again, your eye, it's like, okay, the eye to hand coordination, like what happened here? So you got to stay on top of it with the eye hand coordination.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you have like a book, right, it's one of those, and the fundamentals book, for some people it might be like Harold Speed, the science of drawing, right? That's one of those books that I look at and I revisit sometimes, and I think I should probably get a new copy because at one point
Oh,
it'll fall apart, because it's one of those things that it's good to have like a revisit. It's good to reread the books that you read as a student, to look through what did I miss, or what did I think I understood but then didn't really get it in the same way. Again, like like I mentioned earlier, we are a progress. We're still in progress.
yep.
Our
And
paintings are
your book
always new.
sounds like my Andrew Loomis book
I love
that
Andrew Loomis.
that
Mhm.
I the dogs chewed on the spine, the slip covers all chewed off and coming up. But I will go back and look at that
Mhm.
book and
Yeah.
refresh and relearn, and that's what got me started in figure work.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good. And his method of explaining too, and
Yeah, the
is
Loomis method is just
just, oh,
recommended,
yes.
recommended.
Absolutely. He's really great also for composition.
Yeah.
That's another little side note there. But now I'm really eager to hear a little bit more, because now that you've brought up Andrew Loomis and illustration, I want to hear a little bit more about how you made the jump, as I like to call it, from your day job into becoming a full-time artist.
I was forced to make the jump.
Oh.
I worked as a commercial artist on the side. That was my job. So, I went to private college in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the first year was illustration and painting, and then the second year was commercial art.
Mhm.
And I had dreams of going up to Chicago and being a big ad exec and doing all this stuff. And I've had people from my class who did the Frito Lay commercial and or not Frito Lay, Cheetos. I'm sorry.
Mm.
Uh, the little Chester Cheetah.
Yeah.
He sat a couple chairs down from me, Brad Morgan, who's now since passed away. But and we had another person there who did the Oscar Mayer song. The I don't know if you've seen the little kid on the dock and my baloney has a for. They did that one. So
Yes.
I had grandeur of I'm going to get out of here and go be a big star in Chicago. Eh, no, didn't happen. What happened was that I ended up leaving Chicago going to California. So I lived in California for, oh geez, now it was 36 or 37 years. But while there, I had a couple jobs, but one of the jobs that I had was for working for the Upper Deck Company, the sports trading card company, and that was a good job. I moved my way up the ranks all the way to creative director at the end, and managing, and playing the management role and doing all that and learning and about all the goodies that go behind the scenes of corporate. And so came a time where I got laid off. We got laid off. We had a big layoff, and I went to the beach and I called my wife. I said, "Well, what do you think?" She goes, Now's the time. There's no better time than now to give it a shot." And so she was on my side immediately. And again, that goes back to family members and significant others who have to support and believe in you, because if you don't have that, that's an added friction that you don't need. And she's fantastic. She puts up with a lot, just as my family does. But um, so that was when I started to become a professional artist. But it didn't happen overnight. Uh, I started doing it for 5 years, and it still wasn't really catching on. So I went back to freelancing and did that for a while. So it's a back and forth. You got to get money coming in somehow. Um, but you want your art to thrive. You want your business to go. You want things to pick up and take off. But they sometimes they don't immediately. They just don't. And so there's that tenacity word again. You have to stick with it. So, over time, I had a buddy. I was just doing aviation art, and my wife and a buddy of mine said, you need to branch out. You need to do something else, because this ain't bringing enough in. And maybe in headstrong, saying, "Oh, no, I got this. No, I get that. It's fine. I've got it." Well, I didn't. And so after a while, I said, "Yeah, well, you're right." And I had a buddy call me and said, "Brian, have you seen the Western art world up there? That's pretty good." So we jumped off and started going in that direction. But you can't just jump in a direction that you don't know anything about. He went more cowboy and equestrian, and I went more Native American, which I've always had a passion for, and always had I felt a soul attachment to the indigenous people, and their plight and what happened to them, and all that, wonderful part of history that's not so wonderful. Um, and so relearning a genre was a little scary. I mean, you just don't paint Indians and Native Americans. You have to know what tribe, what they wore, and what the guns, what they used, bows, and everything. Relearning. Well, I love to learn, so okay. So we just kept doing that and learning and going to photo shoots. There's a photo shoot in South Dakota, which is great, and all these models wear authentic gear, and they're wearing what they're supposed to be wearing for the time period, and they have their correct ornament, guns, and everything. And there's it's a 3 day get together with artists and models, and you're shooting all kind of stuff for your reference, and it's a fantastic time. And that was a great way of learning too. Again, getting out there and learning new things and learning about yourself in the same time. And so that kind of caught on and has given me a bigger audience and a better financial, um, what's the word, stability. And so now I juggle back and forth the two genres between aviation and Western art. And when the Western art slows down, the aviation picks up. And when the aviation slows down, the Western art picks up. So right now, it's working fairly well. It could be better, but I can't complain at all. I really can't.
That's great. That's great, because you're still, like you said, very, very early in the episode, and even now, you are in a genre. right?
Mhm.
You're not just like, my thing is this, right? It's as if someone says, I want to paint cars. You have tons of cars that you could choose from. You have historic cars, you have modern cars, you have, a really good breadth within that genre, right? So with the historic genre, you've always had a passion for it, and that makes it so much easier to get, to do that little switch without feeling like, oh, I got to do this now.
Yeah.
It's more like,
No,
oh,
yeah,
it's nice to switch.
it was a segue.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big learning curve, and there still is, but the past 6 or 7 years, I've learned quite a bit from not only research, photo shoots, and other artists. The Western artists are fantastic.
Or
They are just good, decent, down to earth people who paint the American West and paint it the way that it was. And uh, they're just uh, talking to them is just fantastic, and they will teach you and guide you so you can be on your way.
and that's another really beautiful, wonderful thing, because you mentioned, a couple things there that immediately network, right? Network is
Yep.
so important. Meet other artists, talk to other artists like that, because oftentimes it's actually, in my opinion, it's very rare to meet an artist who doesn't want to help their fellow artists, right? I find it much more rare because, sure, some people have this weird perspective of like, oh, competition. But in reality, there isn't, because every voice is so unique. There are collectors who might collect multiple artists, and that's
Hmm.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yes,
Well,
please,
I
buy
sure
art.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's wonderful to also have that I will teach you everything I know perspective, or like that mentality, because it really, one, it helps others who are, also becoming Western artists, who want to become Western artists, and even if it's the same genre, quote unquote, the paintings will be vastly different. That's one. And two, it's beneficial for future generations,
Hmm.
because that information gets carried down
Hmm.
and it continues.
Yep.
And I think that's equally important, even though it's more of a long term sort of
Yep.
perspective. Yeah.
I totally agree, and I think part of it is they are cognizant enough to know and to share their knowledge because they know they're not going to do this forever.
That too.
I mean, these some of these men and women are making six figures on some of their paintings, and these auctions uh, are phenomenal. What some collectors are paying for some of this work, but they're not snooty. They're down to earth. They are absolutely fantastic people, and I enjoy being a part of that genre because not only are they wonderful folks who share their knowledge, they accept you no matter where your status is on the pecking order of the genre. And there is no hoity-toityness about it. Like some of these art shows and some of these art circles, and you'll have a little bit of an attitude, and you'll have this and that and the other. And that's not for me. That could be for somebody. That's fine. I'm not saying anything against it. I just don't enjoy it. And so I like the down to earth, meat and potatoes type of people that I can talk to and share, and they can share with me. And boy, I'm a sponge. I'm picking it up, and I'm asking them at the art shows, what would you do to this painting? And they'll come and tell me. Well, for starters, and then and it's like, okay. I had a painting that was in a big show in Tucson, and I would stand back and I would watch the patrons go by, and they would stop and look at this, and they'd stop and look at that, and they would look at mine, and they'd keep going. And I kept watching that, and I called a guy over who's pretty prominent. God, he's a good painter. And I said, "Could you give me a moment?" He goes, "Yeah, sure. What do you want, Brian?" I said, "I've got a painting over here that collectors are just passing by. What's going on with this? Why aren't they recognizing this? Why isn't something grabbing them?" And so, you look at his name is R.S. Riddick. He's good, and he's got a great, beautiful painting behind it. gave me his time, and I've got my wife took a picture of him, give him the critique, which is great. But I still ask for critiques because I want to learn, I want to get better. There's no such thing as being good enough. There just isn't. And so he would come up and he would tell me what was going on and what I could change, what I could fix. And I did. And I sent it to a collector after it was revised and she bought it. Again, to not be sold on whatever it is your final piece of work is, because there's always probably something you could do better. Maybe the tonal quality could be adjusted. Maybe the values could be adjusted because painting is just value anyway with color. Um, all things to learn. Maybe the figure was a little stiff. Uh, so things to look at, and that's what's part of that genre is so wonderful is because they share, they care, and they're genuine people. And I absolutely just love being with them when I can be with them. They're fantastic folks.
Oh, that's amazing. I think it's one of those things to remember to always be humble, whether you're the person asking for the critique or you're the person giving it, right? Because again, we all want, like, the whole point is we all want everyone to succeed because we can. And just being able to ask your friend or like someone, your
Mhm.
contemporary, like, hey man, I admire you, you're amazing, give me your fresh eyes on this, and
Yep.
then that helps your painting sell. That is
Yeah, and
huge.
fresh eyes are the key to everything, I think. Because I'll be working on a painting and it's not getting there, and I'll set it aside for a month. And then I look at it and it's like, oh, there it is. That's what that I need to fix that,
Yep. Yep.
you know. And I'll look in the mirror. I'll put it in the mirror. I'll turn it upside down. I'll draw upside down. I'll paint upside down. It's for the initial block into the figure. Because once you do that, your brain doesn't see a figure.
Yep.
And I love that. You see the shape, and you can get the shape more accurately if it's upside down. It's not a hand, it's not a face, it's a shape. So when you invert it, it's much easier for me to do it that way. Now, it might not work for others, but it does for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the foundation of, being accurate in a really fantastic sort of way is to be as abstract as possible
Yeah,
for as long as possible,
yeah,
because it is so easy. And I think I mentioned this to a previous guest as well, where we were discussing how it's so easy for the brain to label something. We say that is an eye, and you fall into eye. This is an eye, and it becomes too literal or it becomes too symbolic versus is an eye really like that? I mean, if you ever look at like a Rembrandt portrait and you
yeah,
look at the person, you say, yeah, that's a person. But if you really look at them, you think people don't really look like that. Like,
yeah,
this is so much more abstracted and descriptive than we think. Because again, that logical brain that likes labeling things just wants to kick in and be like, this is what it is. But then, the other side of your brain that's like, I don't know. It is, but not necessarily. Like, the thing came before the word, not the other way around, right?
yeah. And
So
forcing yourself to see something different,
yeah.
for me, it helps. If
Yes.
I'm struggling with something, drawing something, and I still do, I can't get the arm right, or I can't get, it's like, what's going on here? I'll just invert it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. The spatial relationship between the arm and the torso or whatever's going to, there it is. That's what
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah, there's so many ways also to go about it, whether it's, doing that or even just looking at a person that you're painting and just being like, if this were a real human being and they needed to use their anatomy, would this person be able to even function? Right? Like, is the
Yeah,
torso
yeah,
too disconnected from the body? Do they have an extra, I don't know, an extra piece of bone in their spine that they don't need because it just doesn't feel right? There's
yeah,
you could go the route of like anatomy like that, or you could go the route of abstract, or both. Ideally, you want to use these, again, fundamental tools
right. The
you have in your
foundation and
repertoire.
whatever works for that individual.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, those are all oof,
I've been talking too
wonderful.
much. You need
No,
another
I love it. I love it.
another
I love it
question.
because there's so much in here that you've mentioned that I think, for our listeners is so important to remember because again, like yes, art does have the aspects of like marketing and all of these other business things and the creative aspect, but fundamentally it is the fundamentals. And just memorizing
You
that. Yep.
cannot bypass the fundamentals. So don't even try to.
We all want to, and we've all tried.
Yes,
We've all
we have.
tried.
We have all tried to bypass them, and you cannot. You cannot. You have to get those down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mentioned
Perspective,
this last year.
figure in perspective. I mean,
Yep.
you've got to know that insight now.
Yeah. And to quote Michael John Angel, he used to tell us shortcuts make long journeys. So,
Exactly. And it's a
yeah.
journey you don't want to go down, and you've wasted time.
No, no,
And we don't have
just
time to waste.
exactly. If the shortcut was the right way, that would have been the way, but it isn't. So
It's
come
not.
back here, do your
Yep.
basics, get
Yep.
it going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And then I want to talk a little bit more about something you mentioned earlier, which is wall space, because I want to talk a little bit more about, like social media and galleries and how you've used both of those and teaching to diversify your income. But first I want to hear what you meant about wall space.
Well, time and time and time again, you will hear from the collector, I love it, but I don't have the wall space.
Dun, dun.
Okay. Well, I used to paint, gosh, 30 by 40. I used to paint huge. I had trouble selling the huge paints because they don't have wall space. Now, one of them ended up in a very nice Montana home and a big fireplace, stone fireplace, and they had the space for it. Perfect. But you've got to find that certain collector, and if you paint large, it took 5 or 6 years to, or maybe 7 to sell that thing. And I redid that one. That's the one I took to Bill Anton and had him look at it, and he's like, "Well, you can draw figures. Okay, that's good. That's what you want to hear." Um, and then he told me, you know, in the front of that robe, it's Lakota woman in buffalo robe. In the front of that robe, it needs that shape broken up. But you put a plant or something in front of that to kind of break that shape up. Okay, I went home. I put a like a sage or something in front of that and broke the shape up. Yeah, it sold. So it's the little things that you have to learn that's going to make or break a sale. Uh, your fundamentals with your edges and your tone and all that has to be there. Your composition, you have to strike them with the composition. And some of my figure work. Um, oh, here's something to share. Figures don't sell as well as action scenes. Portraits don't sell as well as action scenes. Something else to remember that I found out is that the smaller paintings, 12 by 9s, 11 by 14s, sell a lot more and you have a better chance of a sale than your larger paintings because of the wall space. You can get 8 little 9 by 12s in the space of a 30 by 40. So, along the way, there's a lot of trial and error and learning and frustration, and that's all part of it. That's all part of it. But what I have found, especially in my genre, is kind of the smaller paintings kind of sell a little better because of the wall space issue. And I've heard that in both genres. I've heard that in aviation, and I have heard that in Native American art. So something to share, a little tidbit.
Yeah, and that's a really great tidbit because again, like I also want to remind, listeners, like 12 by 9 is perfect. But if it's even more perfect if it fits with what you're doing. Because
Hmm.
it is true, smaller pieces do sell a lot easier and a lot better. And it's a smaller price tag, so it's a lot more accessible. And like you said, it doesn't mean you can't sell bigger work. Just
Right.
expect that, you have to also set an expectation of if it's a big piece, give it some time. If it's a small piece, it could go a little quicker. But yeah, just managing that
Yeah, and
within what you love to do. Yes,
the
yes,
smaller
yes.
pieces can kind of sustain financially a little better than the larger. Waiting for the larger one to sell.
Exactly.
You can
Yeah.
sell the smaller ones quicker and have some revenue stream coming in. Mind you, you have to paint a lot of small ones to get them out there for people to see them, but it can be done. Uh, and that could be a route to go before you really, you're known for that, and then you're invited to bigger gallery shows, and you can expand the size, because then you're going to find
Mhm.
a collector who wants that size, who wants that price point, who will pay
Yes,
$10,000 to $12,000 for it. And
exactly.
so uh, the one sale that I had was a 30 by 40. I think it was 12,000. That was a wonderful feeling. That was a personal high for me.
Yeah.
That, like, oh my God, somebody will pay, really? And so that made you feel good, and that gave you a little bit of credibility.
Mhm.
But you can't rest on that. You can't fall back on that. Well, I sold a painting for $12,000. Well, that's good. That's great. But you got to keep selling, and it's just something you have to just keep working for and working towards. But she had the wall space, but most people don't. And some
Yes.
collectors will take their wall space and take some down and put others up. Just kind of transpose them, spring, fall, whatever,
Yeah.
which is interesting too. So, but yeah, the wall space is a reality in the art world, and you have to kind of keep that in mind as you do your work.
Exactly. Mind the wall space. Mind the
Yep,
wall space. Yeah.
find the
Um,
wall space.
yep. And then also I did want to ask, how you've balanced like using social media as well. Because, like I said, information time. Do you find that social media has also helped you in terms of sales or, maybe getting some eyes on your work?
Social media has helped to a degree, but as we were talking about earlier, the
Mhm.
algorithms have changed on Facebook, where it's not as conducive to the artist as it was 5 years ago. And now they will help you, but you have to buy ads. You have to buy this, you have to buy that, you have to buy, I guess, credibility. Um, to reach higher audiences. I still wrestle with that. I still post on Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram's a better way to go. But um, just for the fact that Facebook isn't as good as they once were regarding artistic uh, marketing. But I still do that. I still do my web. I do a blog. I had a blog in OPA recently where they reached out and wanted me to do a blog. So I did a blog regarding, a passion for history. Find your niche, find what you love to do. Um, so that really helps. This interview with you really helps. Getting out there and having an audience who may have heard of me, who may not have heard of me, and give me a chance and listen to what I'm trying to get across and share and life lessons. Um, I appreciate that. That really helps. Um, and you reached out, which was nice. I'm not quite sure how you found me, but I'm glad you did. So the marketing part for me could be better, but I do jump on it when I have paintings at galleries, and I have some big events coming up. I will post them and write on my blog, update my website, and write on Facebook and Instagram. Um, I haven't joined Twitter or X or whatever they call it now. Um, I'm not sure that some of this social media is as good as it was. And I know the younger artists out there who are using social media uh, to their advantage has a leg up on the older cowpokes, because it's just we do use it, we see the benefit in it, but doing videos and things, I have to get better at that. So that's a that's an Achilles heel I need to attack and get out there and do the videos. And I don't know if you need to do a little dance with it when you're selling your painting, but there's all kind of things out there that will help that I should be doing a little bit more. But I do use social media for marketing and other tools for marketing, but the videos I need to do better with.
That's all of us. You're not alone.
Well, you're doing a video right now. I mean, you do a lot
Yeah,
of, and it works.
yeah,
I
it
knew
does.
I
It
I knew
does.
who you were even when you wrote. I
Oh.
know that name. I know that person.
Yeah. But it's, obviously it's one thing to be doing the podcast. It's another if it's for my own paintings. Which, again, like when you're an artist, what you just said brings to mind so much that we have so many hats, right? The given is the work itself, and that's already so much. And then on top of that, it's dealing with galleries, networking, getting in shows, recording yourself to put it on the internet.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
so much that goes into it. That's I understand why people would also, they'll do social media, but they prefer galleries because of course galleries are, they get their cut and they sell your work, and a lot of the marketing gets done by them anyway. That's what you pay the gallery for. But I do know artists who do just focus on hustling into their social media, and they do really well, and they get a lot of sales that way too. So it's good to
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
different ways of doing the same thing that everyone does, which is sell work and get students and get shows. Yeah.
yeah. And usually on Monday is my marketing day, so I will block Monday out and I'll just pick a day to do the marketing.
Yeah.
Half a day or whatever comes out, or when I got a new painting coming out, share that, get that out there. Get a newsletter started, which I have. So FASO gives you great tools to help be successful. You just have to use those tools. And so I do use those and join the Bold Brush competition, and you just kind of stay out there and try and be relevant. We're all trying to be relevant. There's so many artists out there, so many good artists, and all we want is to be relevant and respected, and to be seen and noticed and
Mhm.
appreciated. And that is a work in itself, because it's a fight to clamor up to be respected or to be noticed or appreciated, because there's so many good artists out there that are fine vying for that that little piece of crumb that or nickel or whatever it is that you're fighting for. So um, yeah, I mean I do use it, but I need to be a little better on videos, and you've given me the incentive to start doing that. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm sure you'll do really great again because your work is so beautiful. And I think, if anything, if I could ask you for a suggestion, it would be to talk, like not to talk, but like to show some of your process, because I think it's amazing, the perspective in your work and the way that you do it, whether it's your Western art or your aviation art. I think that's one of the things. I mean, personally, as an artist, I love to see process, but I know for
Hmm.
sure there are also collectors out there who appreciate the work and they themselves don't paint, but they also love to kind of see how things happen because it's so fascinating.
Well, that's good that you brought that up, because
Yeah.
so many times they want to know the background of the piece. They want to know the story behind the piece. And sharing how that is done helps with sales. If you're out there, and I've done it for years, if you're out there and you're doing a demo, or you're at a street fair show, and I've done many street fairs in my day where, people are walking by and it's not an art venue and they're not going to buy anything, but they're picking up your card and they'll go and look at your website later, and possibly, you never know, you don't. Um, it's all part of it. It's all part of paying the dues. It's all part of getting noticed. It's all part of learning about yourself, how to sell yourself. Um, I was not very good at selling myself. Uh, I'm more introverted, so it's kind of hard for me to do that. But if you start talking to me about what I do, um, then I can talk about it. But if I meet somebody that's out there and I'm shooting the bowl, and they ask what you do, and say, "Oh, I'm an artist." "Oh, you're an artist, so you draw pretty pictures all day." Well, we've all been through that. It's not taken seriously. I'm a professional artist. Are you still doing pictures all day, right? Well, yeah. So it's a disrespected profession to a degree. The artists in the profession know exactly what we're going through and exactly how and why we go through it. But the person who asks you what you do, I mean, so many parties I've been to. My wife has worked for Edward Jones, and I'm a professional artist. So you draw pictures all day, and then they walk off. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I do. So the disrespect at times is like, oh, come on. So you just have to laugh about it. You just have to be tenacious, and you just have to keep going. So um, yeah, I digress, but yeah,
Part of the
that's
job.
crazy.
Yeah, that tenacity really does kick in. Because I mean, just because people don't understand it doesn't mean it's less important. And yes, it is a commodity and we do it because we love it. And it's one of those things that is, in my opinion, a very selfish career because it's very much like I want to share my vision with the world, but also at the same time, the world needs beauty out there. And it's so important because there's imagine if everything in the world was colorless or imageless. Like it's so
Yeah.
that would make the world so, I mean, yeah, nature is beautiful, but if we're living in four white walls, right, or six technically, ceiling and floor, that's boring. That's
Mhm.
demoralizing, you know? So we do need to fill the world with beauty. And yeah, some people won't get it, but that's fine. We just
No, that's fine. Yeah, I just, I'm used to it. It's been
yep,
30, 40 years you hear that, and you're just like, it's so, it's like water running off a duck now. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
but there
yep,
are those that will come up and ask about it and are interested in it, but generally, it's, professional people, and they look at you like, well, you married up, didn't you? I was like, oh God, it's no, but
yeah.
yeah, it's always a journey. It's always a struggle, and no
Yes.
matter where you are in your career or in your life,
Yeah.
and like you said, you're always learning, and you should never stop learning or wanting to learn about the process or a paint or a technique or that's what's so cool about it is learning more about what you've chosen to do.
It's always more, always. And also I did want to ask because I'm one of those people who I like seeing paintings in real life. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any upcoming shows or do you have any workshops that are coming up?
I have upcoming shows at Settlers West in May. I've got two pieces in there. That was one of the galleries that I fought for years to try to get in there, and I'm pleased as punch that I'm there. I'll have some work at the Coeur d'Alene Miniature Show um, coming up. Hopefully, I'll be in the Mountain Oyster Club show coming up in Tucson in November, and that will be my eighth year out of 9 years. One year I didn't get in. You have to be juried in, and one year I didn't get in, so it was a shot across the bow. It's like they were very nice about it, but it's like up your game, pal. And so it's like, okay, yeah, I have to up my game. So yeah, I mean those shows are good. Some of the auctions uh, I'll try to get in, but I've got a mix of travel this year, going to Europe at a certain time, and so it's a juggling act. You have
Mm,
to juggle. Um,
yeah.
what was the front part of your question?
Workshops.
Workshops.
Yes.
I want to do a workshop very badly. I had a
Mm,
health issue last year where I was kind of out of commission for most of the year. Once the um, situation was under control, and you're just tired from a major operation.
yeah.
And I couldn't commit to either teaching or doing a workshop. And I want to do a workshop coming up about the figure in military aviation. I want to do that. It's basically figure work, but getting the fundamentals across, but just using it in the genre that I enjoy. So hopefully in the fall, I can get that going. But I do want to do more workshops. I enjoy teaching. I think if I could branch out into more mainstream fundamentals and get across what we've discussed, um, and kind of loosen up and abstract your work a bit. I love charcoal work too. Um, I did a painting or a charcoal drawing called War Chief, and that's on the website. I enjoyed that one. Again, it's a spontaneous kind of um, kind of a Casey Bosch type of thing, where he just does the technique and just has fun doing it. And uh, I don't know, I haven't mentioned this, but I almost hung it up a couple of years ago because it was frustrating. It didn't seem like I was getting anywhere. I wasn't going to cut my ear off, but I thought, this isn't working very well. And then I saw some of Casey Ball's work. I was like, oh my God, this kid's good. And he was a Schmitty.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but he did something different than what Richard did. Richard's fantastic. He was another one that I should have mentioned. There's so many artists that have been inspirational. He's one of them, definitely. But yeah, he kind of saved. Uh, I'm not going to say my career, but he saved my outlook
Mm.
on that. The way he was approaching his work, um, being experimental, pushing it. Um, Subtracting some things where it still gets across. Less is more sometimes. You don't have to add all the details. I mean, the Russian painting behind you is absolutely fantastic, but I could never
Yeah.
do it, um, nor would I want to. I've kind of, as I've gotten older, would like to do the more loose, stylized kind of just fling in paint and see what happens. As long as the fundamental drawing is correct, it doesn't matter. But he was very instrumental in helping me look at things differently because I was kind of stagnant. And so there's always artists out there who can give you a boost without even knowing them by just looking at their work and being intrigued by what they're doing. There's a couple of folks out there doing charcoal work. I can't remember her name, but she's fantastic. Um, I should have had it pulled up and ready, but uh, she does kind of like a blocky, loose. It's fantastic. I mean, it just gets the juices going. It's like, oh, that's cool. So there's always something out there that somebody is doing that will get you going again. So if you ever run up across a block, a mental block, uh, just start looking around. There's art out there that's going to inspire you and that's going to flip the switch and get you going again. Um, so yeah, the charcoal work I really enjoy doing, and pulling that charcoal work into my oil painting now is what I've started to do. So that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to, again, this isn't an easy career. You give so much of yourself in your work, and just being able to revitalize by experimenting, by trying a different medium that you normally make. Those are all really important things to do because it's easy to get defeated.
Yep.
There are moments where you have to you take some time off, and then suddenly you're asking yourself, am I an artist? I haven't painted in a while. Does it still count? Am I still an
Yeah. Yeah.
artist?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh, that's dangerous territory. That's when you know you should be
Yep.
looking into your fundamentals again, or just allowing yourself to play, just play with your work, and don't
Just
take it so
just
seriously.
grab a book, sit down, and look at it again,
Yeah.
and reintroduce yourself to why you're doing this in the first place.
It's very
And if you still have trouble, then look around. They're out there. There is inspiration out there. No matter what genre, no matter what you're doing, there is something out there. Somebody doing something different
yeah.
that's going to flip that switch for you. And it's got, oh, I gotta go to the easel.
Yes.
Another thing an artist said to me, or not to me, but in general, is even when you don't feel like you want to draw or paint, get down there and do it anyway because it'll come.
Yeah.
You start slinging paint around and get down there and start. It'll come to you, even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't feel good. And I'll wrestle with that. I don't feel good, or I'm not in a good mental state. I've got to be in the right mental state to attack it. And so I've been trying to get down there and trying to do that when I don't feel like it, when I'm not in the mental state. Mental is so much part of what we do. We have to clear our heads, and we have to push life aside, and we have to be able to clearly focus on what it is we're trying to do. And sometimes life will get in the way, like you mentioned, or you're just mentally not there that day, or you don't feel well. But his advice was very, very great. To get down there and try it anyway because it will come if you do. Just start slinging it around. So I've had some good advice from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I really have.
Yeah, and it's good to also, like you're doing now, you're passing it along. And I think that's very important. And again, what you just said brings to mind that, having that tenacity, whether it's against, a gallery that keeps beating you down, or, you just keep trying, and then tenacity against your own self, those
Hmm.
mental blocks that we put that are so easy to just give into. Don't give up, you know?
I
Um,
agree. I think we're our own worst enemy.
oh yeah.
We're our own worst critic, and we're our own worst enemy. And we have to fight that to help succeed. Because,
Yes.
like I said, mental God, is probably 50% of it. The
At
other
least.
half is the foundation and your technique, but the mental part to attack it, to understand it, and then attack it, because you have to attack it. If you're tentative, it's not going to show. You mentioned something about my technique and what I do, and I probably will do a video. Thank you for requesting that. But
Yeah.
like most artists, I'll just put down a wash of a color. Usually it's transparent oxide red and a little bit of cobalt blue, and just scrub it in real quick. And then nowadays I won't even draw the figure. Some people will put the figure down in charcoal or draw. I won't. I'll pick it out. I'll just pick out areas with my rag or a paper towel or something while it's still wet. So that keeps it fresh. That keeps it more spontaneous. Because I have a tendency to get too tight and noodle, and I don't want to noodle. So
It's true. It's
I
true. You
don't
have
want to
to know
noodle. So
yourself. Yeah.
yeah. So I just wanna be more spontaneous. So that's how I'll start, and then I'll just start with the eye or maybe the forehead, and then just start working my way down that way. But I won't draw it on the canvas anymore because I'll get too tight, and I've got plenty of time to make sure that it's correct. The spatial relationship and all that. But I want to keep it spontaneous. I want things to happen. I don't want to. And there's artists out there that are going to rag on me and say, "Well, you need to draw it down." You did well. No, that's fine. That's just what I do. That's just how I approach it. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. Some will use charcoal to draw it down. I know Morgan Wiesling does. He's a fantastic artist. he'll draw with charcoal and get the drawing down right. But for me, I'd rather not because I'll get too tight.
Yeah, it's part
So
of discovering your process and
yeah,
experimenting.
it's part of what works for you. What we talked about much earlier in the podcast of what works for you is what you go with, and it's part of it becomes part of who you are as an artist.
Ever evolving, of course. And yeah, and on that note, if someone wants to look at your beautiful work, where can they see it?
They can go to brianbatemanartstudios.com. They can check it out.
Awesome. Yeah. And then social media?
God, you'd think I would know that by now, but I don't. You just look up Brian Bateman Art Studios and I'll pop up. And
Yeah.
it'll probably be there, but I should know that. But it's some weird address on Facebook. It's like it's something, but and a
Yeah.
number. But maybe I can send it to you and you can put it on the
Yes.
podcast. So
Of course.
I'd
I'll include
appreciate
all
that.
of your links.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This has been a motivating, inspiring, and honestly very one of the most realistic conversations I've had in a while because it really, sets you down on the ground about the realities, both in the marketing and business side of painting and the side of creation. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and I hope I can come across to younger artists and even those who are a little longer in the tooth,
Yeah.
um, to what I've observed. And now it's not for everybody, but
Mm.
it's just my honest opinion of where I've been and where I've come from and where I'm going.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
Of course.